Imagine spending your days just buried in physics textbooks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, calculating load-bearing limits, thermodynamics, just all the strict physical rules of mechanical engineering.
Right. Highly structured stuff.
Exactly. And now imagine tossing all those textbooks aside to step onto the set of a highly scrutinized, multi-million-dollar media production in, well, one of the world's most controversial fields.
That is quite the pivot.
It really is. Today, we're looking at someone who executed exactly that pivot. Welcome to our latest deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
So today's stack of sources includes a collection of biographies, wiki entries, and career retrospectives focusing on a prominent figure from the mid-2000s media landscape,
Yeah.
a woman known professionally as Amy Ried.
And, I think it is crucial right up front to establish the specific area of media she operated in just to understand the gravity of her trajectory. She built her career in the adult entertainment industry. And our mission today with these sources is to look entirely past the surface-level stigma that inevitably surrounds films for mature audiences.
Right, because it's usually just sensationalized.
Exactly. We are focusing strictly on the mechanics of her career, like how she built a highly bankable personal brand, how she engineered her own financial stability, and honestly, the intense discipline required to know exactly when to walk away from it all.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we aren't just reciting a biography today, right? We're exploring how an individual navigates a notoriously chaotic and unpredictable environment with a remarkably grounded, business-first mindset.
Yeah, a very rare mindset for that space.
Totally. So to do that, we have to start with a background that completely shatters the typical stereotypes associated with this particular industry. She was born Devin Valencia in 1985 in Frankfurt, Germany, to an American military family.
Right, so growing up, she lived the classic life of an army brat.
Which means a lot of moving around, I assume.
Oh, yeah. Her father was eventually transferred, relocating the family to Southern California when she was still a baby. And the sources highlight her incredibly diverse multicultural heritage, too.
German, American, French, Cajun, and Amerindian descent, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the most significant takeaway from her early years is really that military influence. A childhood characterized by the military implies a life defined by intense regulation.
Like strict rules and routines.
Exactly. Frequent moves, strict adaptability, and an environment where every outcome is calculated.
And she clearly carried that disciplined upbringing into her higher education because she attended California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, for 2 years.
Right.
And this is the detail that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. She was studying mechanical engineering.
It's wild to think about.
Right. From mastering the rigid laws of physics to suddenly jumping into the mature media space. But I actually want to push back on how we frame this transition for a second.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Is it really fair to call this a pragmatic or like a calculated move? Because to me, abandoning a secure STEM path for an industry with zero safety nets sounds less like an engineering calculation and more like a 20-year-old taking a wild, impulsive risk that just happened to pay off.
Well, I mean, it certainly looks impulsive from the outside. But consider the underlying psychology and the practical allure of the industry at that specific time.
Okay, what do you mean?
Traditional academic paths, especially in rigorous STEM fields, require a monumental amount of deferred gratification.
Oh, for sure. You're studying for years.
Right. You take on significant debt, you study forever, you enter a corporate hierarchy as a junior associate, and maybe decades down the line, you achieve financial autonomy.
If you're lucky.
Exactly. The adult entertainment space offered an entirely different value proposition: immediate, significant financial independence.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, for someone raised in a highly regimented environment, bypassing the corporate climb to take total control over her own income and schedule is actually a highly pragmatic, albeit unconventional, calculation.
So autonomy was the ultimate goal. She essentially wanted to be the CEO of her own life right out of the gate.
Yeah, and she identified a shortcut to get there.
Wow, okay. So she makes this massive leap around 2005 or 2006. Initially, she performs under the stage name Devin Valencia, which is obviously a direct nod to her real name, before eventually adopting the globally recognized brand name, Amy Ried.
And her rise in this space was incredibly rapid, which is notable given the specific era, honestly.
This was the mid-2000s, right?
Yeah, the mid-2000s. It was an awkward transitional period before high-definition streaming completely saturated and eventually decentralized the market.
So it was still mostly physical media.
Right. It was the twilight of the highly lucrative DVD era, transitioning into early online platforms. So the competition for visibility and retail shelf space was fierce. Yet she quickly moved from a newcomer to a heavily booked, recognizable name.
The sheer volume of her output totally backs that up. I mean, she eventually appeared in over 200 features.
That is a massive catalog of work.
An undeniable catalog, yeah. And she hit major business milestones that separated her from, the casual gig workers. Specifically, signing highly coveted exclusive contracts with major production houses,
Which is a huge deal.
like Third Degree Films in 2007 and New Sensations in 2009.
Yeah, and we really need to contextualize the historical weight of those exclusive contracts.
Break that down for us.
Well, anyone who follows media business models knows what an exclusivity deal is. But in the mature media market of 2007, it meant something very specific. The industry was approaching a digital cliff.
Because of the internet.
Exactly. The transition from physical DVDs to free online streaming was beginning to decimate traditional revenue stream.
Right, studios were panicking.
So in that volatile climate, a studio handing out a guaranteed steady salary meant they had looked at their internal data and determined her specific brand was a reliable anchor.
They were betting on her to keep them afloat.
Yeah, they were absorbing the financial risk of a changing market purely to ensure their competitors couldn't leverage her popularity.
That is fascinating. She secured her own financial stability just as the foundation of the industry was starting to crack.
Perfect timing, really.
But what was the actual product they were investing in? Like, what made her specific brand so valuable?
The sources describe her presence as having a natural athletic frame with a bright, approachable girl-next-door vibe.
And that worked for her.
Oh, that combination was her distinct niche. In an era where many performers were leaning into extreme glamour, highly manufactured personas, or increasingly aggressive niches to stand out in a crowded market, she offered a relaxed, playful presence.
So she went the opposite direction.
Exactly. She had a recognizable, authentic smile. She stood out precisely because she didn't look like she was playing a heavy character. She brought a grounded, energetic authenticity to her scenes that resonated deeply with the consumer base.
It is the difference between a highly overproduced pop anthem and an acoustic set.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Both require immense talent, but the acoustic set feels much more immediate and intimate to the audience. She figured out her unique value proposition and monetized it brilliantly, establishing a brand identity that was versatile enough to work with top-tier directors while remaining incredibly consistent. The following text should be inserted in the middle of the podcast. If you're enjoying the vibe, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. It really helps us out.
So, getting back to it, that consistency was really the bedrock of her success.
Because studios want a sure thing.
Right. A studio doesn't invest in a performer who constantly reinvents their core appeal. They invest in a recognizable asset. Her branding allowed her to maintain that core identity.
Which paid off in a big way.
It did. It eventually led to recognition not just from the consumer base, but from her peers within the industry itself.
Yeah, she won a Rookie Award in 2007, perfectly coinciding with her first big contract.
Unsurprising given her momentum.
And then she secured major industry awards in 2010. But one of the most fascinating highlights from that period was a mainstream crossover project.
Oh, right. The parody.
Yeah, she played a role in a parody of the hit television show 30 Rock.
And crossover parodies require a fundamentally different skill set than standard features in the mature media space.
How so?
Well, they demand comedic timing, a sharp understanding of mainstream pop culture, and the ability to carry a narrative structure that references something completely outside the adult entertainment sphere.
So it's real acting, basically.
Exactly. It was another proof point of her versatility.
The contrast between that high-energy, very public on-screen persona and her real-life personality is really striking there.
Oh, it's like night and day.
Right. In interviews from the sources, she describes herself as a grounded homebody. She loves athletics, which obviously tracks with her background. But she even admits to a highly relatable, nervous bad habit. She bites her nails.
I read that.
We are presented with a picture of a very normal, somewhat introverted person behind the scenes, which seems entirely at odds with the industry she dominated.
Well, the psychological profiling provided in the sources offers some incredible clarity on this dichotomy.
You're talking about the Enneagram stuff.
Yeah, they analyze her personality through the lens of the Enneagram, specifically typing her as an Enneagram Type 7 with a 6 wing, often written as 7W6.
Okay, looking at her 7W6 Enneagram profile, I read that as a fundamental clash between wanting wild adventure and desperately needing security.
That's a good way to put it.
A core type 7, the enthusiast, is characterized by spontaneous energy and an aversion to feeling trapped. But the 6 wing, the loyalist, is driven entirely by a need for structure and preparedness.
Exactly.
So it seems to me like the uninhibited nature of the mature media industry fed the 7, while those exclusive salaried contracts fed the 6. Is that a fair assessment of how she operated?
That is an incredibly accurate read. When you combine the spontaneous energy of a 7 with the structural needs of a 6, you get someone who craves an unconventional adventure, but treats it with remarkable maturity.
They don't just fly off the handle.
Right. The behavioral manifestation of a 7W6 in this environment is the ability to dive into a chaotic, controversial field, but remain competent enough to completely separate the playtime aspect from the grueling mechanical legwork required to actually succeed.
Man, here is where it gets really interesting. That specific psychological profile perfectly addresses a critique that popped up in some of the source material.
Oh, about her performance style.
Yeah. Reviewers noted that while she had incredible natural energy, some felt her performances occasionally lacked intensity, depending on the setting.
Right.
Like in certain repetitive or standard scenarios, she almost seemed emotionally detached. The obvious question is, how does someone maintain a high-energy, intimate persona on cue day after day without completely burning out?
The answer is entirely rooted in that 6 wing and her pragmatic, engineering-oriented brain.
She just shut it off.
Basically, she survived the industry precisely because she did not let it consume her true identity. She built a massive, impenetrable firewall between Amy Ried the brand and Devin Valencia the person.
She treated it like a 9-to-5 job.
Yes. Maintaining strict emotional boundaries in a field that demands constant physical intimacy is an essential survival mechanism.
Because the fans want all of you.
Exactly. The parasocial relationships in that era were intense. Fans felt deeply connected to that girl next door persona. If a performer gives 100% of their genuine emotional intensity to every single scene and every single fan interaction, psychological burnout is inevitable.
It's just too much.
So the critique that she sometimes lacked intensity is actually evidence of her profound professionalism.
It's like an elite athlete. You don't sprint at maximum speed during a light Tuesday practice drill. You conserve that energy for the championship game.
That's spot on.
She viewed her work as a set of mechanical tasks to be completed efficiently. The input was her time and energy, the output was financial independence, and that firewall was the safety valve keeping the system from overloading.
Yep.
She was still operating like a mechanical engineering student, just solving a radically different set of equations.
And this completely challenges how we typically view performers in controversial fields.
Right, the stigma.
Society often assumes their on-screen persona is their entire identity, that they are consumed by the lifestyle. But for a high performer like her, the spontaneous, wild persona was simply the product being sold.
And the real her was running the business.
The grounded homebody who bit her nails was the CEO managing the inventory. She survived by entirely divorcing her ego from her product.
Which brings us to the end game. That intense compartmentalization we just talked about, treating her persona like a structured job, is actually the exact same mechanism that allowed her to do something almost nobody in that industry does.
Which is walk away.
Exactly. Walk away with her wealth intact. Let's look at her exit strategy. After a highly successful run spanning nearly a decade, she deliberately withdrew from the industry around 2013 and 2014.
Yeah, she didn't just fade away as bookings dried up. She formally retired.
She walked away from the table while she was still winning.
Absolutely. The sources estimate her net worth upon retirement to be anywhere between $500,000 and $5 million.
That is serious financial independence.
It really is. Furthermore, she managed to navigate high-profile relationships within her field. Various industry figures and colleagues are mentioned in the notes, but she emerged fiercely independent. She refused to tie her exit strategy or her future stability to anyone else's career.
She focused entirely on her own personal growth, her well-being, and building a life completely outside the camera's view. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Obviously, very few people are navigating the complex, highly specific pressures of the adult entertainment world. But the core lesson here is profoundly universal. Everyone, no matter what field or industry they operate in, faces moments where a career path, a company, or even a specific professional identity no longer serves their growth.
We all grapple with the sunk cost fallacy. You invest 4 years into an engineering degree or a decade climbing the ladder at a specific corporation, and you feel entirely obligated to stay.
Because leaving feels like failing.
Right. You convince yourself that walking away means all that previous effort was wasted, even when the environment is actively detrimental to your well-being.
Whether you are a corporate attorney who desperately wants to open a bakery or an engineering student who pivots into controversial media, the courage to recognize when a phase of your life is complete is incredibly rare.
It takes a lot of self-awareness.
It does. She built a highly valuable, lucrative brand, but she did not let that brand trap her. She understood that the persona she created was merely a vehicle to get her to financial independence, not her final destination.
And as the media landscape began to fundamentally shift, moving heavily toward high-definition streaming and an entirely new era of exhaustive social media integration, she had the foresight to step back.
She saw the writing on the wall.
She recognized the changing mechanics of her industry and chose not to force herself to adapt to a new paradigm she had no interest in participating in.
It is the ultimate flex. Mastering the game, securing your winnings, and then simply choosing not to play the sequel.
She utilized the industry to achieve the financial autonomy she likely sought when she left college. She maximized her earning potential through those exclusive contracts, protected her mental health through strict emotional compartmentalization, and transitioned out before the industry could dictate her life trajectory for her.
It's impressive.
It is a masterclass in establishing boundaries and prioritizing personal peace over the continued chaotic energy of a public persona.
To summarize our deep dives today, we've traced a remarkable and entirely unconventional journey.
We really have.
We started with a disciplined military upbringing and a rigorous mechanical engineering track, leading to an unexpected pivot into one of the most highly scrutinized fields in media.
Right.
We watched her build a top-tier personal brand, leveraging a unique, authentic presence into lucrative, exclusive contracts during a volatile era for the industry.
And we examine the grounded, boundary-setting psychology that protected her from burnout.
Allowing her to divorce her true identity from her product. And finally, we saw an independent business person who executed a flawless exit strategy, securing her financial future and leaving on her own terms.
Her trajectory forces us to reevaluate the preconceived notions we bring to certain professions. It serves as a reminder that behind a controversial public figure or an unconventional career choice, there is often a quiet, calculated strategist making incredibly pragmatic, mechanical decisions about their own survival and success.
It fundamentally changes how I look at career trajectories and the concept of longevity, which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder on your own time. We talked today about building foundations and making dramatic pivots. We talked about engineering a public persona and having the profound strength to walk away from it once it served its purpose. So consider this. If you had to completely reinvent your professional identity tomorrow, leaving behind everything you are currently known for, how much of your past would you bring with you, and how much would you have the courage to leave behind?
A profound question to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. Keep questioning the blueprints, and as always, stay curious.